Alright, Hwa Rang Gaming here. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be a nightmare solo run on Shadows of War using my Staggering Breath Ronin. So I'll do a little bit in terms of explaining the gameplay as we go. I won't be talking too much, but I'll just explain different things. So here, for example, I just came through over that overhead just so that I could get down here and set up a smoke bomb. Toss out a few bombs here, lower some enemy health a bit. I wasn't actually planning to completely kill that enemy because I wanted to kill him with Spirit Kunai, but it is what it is. And so get rid of the Tengu, of course, is one of those optimal things that you just have to make sure of, right? So from here, I'm really trying to make sure that I have a good eye on all of the enemies, and then of course rolling out of certain enemy attacks when necessary. So one of the big keys to playing Ghost is to not over amp your button presses. And I'll admit that I'm still guilty of that sometimes, but what you don't want to do is you do not want to just start mashing buttons, right? Because if you were mashing a ton of buttons, then you can't cancel out a combo. And so that's a very big issue that you'll have, and then you won't be able to dodge, step back, or block and parry when enemies are attacking you because you're already caught in the combo animation. And just making sure to pay attention to the sounds and everything in the battlefield. For me, that's one of my biggest things, is listening to the actual enemy motions and targeting. They all have different sounds that indicate what they're going to do at a certain time. So make sure that you're paying attention to those and take advantage of them. With the big Oni Ords like this, you can fight them up close if you really want to, but my suggestion would be to take distance at different times and use that to your advantage. So right now we're just finishing off this last remaining Oni Lord here. I like to normally play around with them once it gets to this point, especially since you can just wait and get a kill using the Spirit Kunai and bring some of your cooldowns back from that. So that allowed me to increase the cooldown, or to kind of, I guess it wouldn't even be increase, right? It'd be more like a decrease, but decrease the time for the cooldown on my smoke bomb. So now we're rolling over to this next area of the battlefield, and you'll see that I'm going to kind of use the same idea here. Flash bomb to stop the Tengu from attacking me. Get up there, bring the fight to them a little bit, and then after that I'll jump down. But the Tengu is always first one up to try and get rid of it. So we'll just go ahead, get rid of that Tengu, be done with it, take care of the enemy up here, and then after that we can go back down and fight these enemies on the lower levels. I already have an ult ready, so I'm going to hit them with that shockwave ult, knock their health down a bit. And then after that, we'll go ahead and clean up the remainders with Spirit Kunai. Because of the extra dose weapon damage that you have from the perk on Ronin, gives 50% ghost weapon damage increase. And I think I have ghost weapon damage on my Spirit Kunai as well, one more time. And so those two things combined make my Spirit Kunai very, very powerful. About 70% ghost weapon damage, I think, if I remember correctly, is what you're tossing at that point. So it really manages to get some things done, right? So we'll go ahead, avoiding the archers. You have to, I don't even use the indicators. As you can see, I use no arrow indicators. I just listen for the actual sounds of the enemies drawing their bow, or I watch for enemies that decide to duck or hit the ground. And when that happens, I know the arrows are about to start flying. So you can use the terrain, as you can see there, to be able to actually block the arrows. You just have to time it right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and if it doesn't, that's normally probably because of me. That's just me not managing to line everything up the way I want to. And I do like to mess around a bit, as you can see there, with me doing like the jumping downward kick and stuff like that, just to see if you know, what it'll do to the enemies. So we'll go ahead and close out this next circle. I did have to take a chance to wait for a bit right here, so you'll kind of see me do a little bit of starting and stopping. There's another point where I'm probably going to do that a little bit later in the playthrough if I remember correctly, because I was kind of balancing a few things while also playing, but no worries, right? Okay, so again, I have the Poison Blade on my Ronin, so one of the things I like to do, start a bit of a combo on the Oni Lord, just bring his staggered gauge down a little bit. Now we'll wait, toss Spirit Kunai, take out a few enemies so that'll lower that cooldown, and we're already back to almost being ready to deliver another ult. And that's without me having resolve increase or anything like that. If I had resolve increase on here, I'd already easily have another ult ready to go. So we're now ready to drop another ult. So we're just going to make sure that we positioned ourselves. Never start your Ronin ult when you can get hit by the Oni archers. You want to make sure that you've gotten into a position where either they've just fired their arrows or you start your ult before they fire their arrows, so that way you aren't getting hit in the process. As you can see, you can jump the Oni stabs, the Oni Lord stabs. There's a timing to it. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong, but you can jump them. So here, I decided not to waste any bombs and just kind of follow this Oni archer till I can take it out. Definitely don't stand in that purple fire. For those people who don't know this, I've seen a few newbies sit there and stand in it. That will obviously melt your health down and kill you. So here I just needed to take a quick break for a second. As you can tell, this is a voiceover that I add in afterward for the gameplay. I probably could have recorded it in the moment with it, but I just figured that it would be just easier to come back and do the voiceover, because honestly I didn't even know if I was going to get it on this one with the Nightmare solo with this build. I'm going to do my best to explain all of the techniques and the thought process that I used though when playing through this one, and I hope y'all enjoy it. Oh, and I also thought I should mention some things about the controller I used for this one as well. This entire solo was done on a DualSense Edge controller. I would say that the controller doesn't make a huge difference, but for those people who are looking for a little bit of an extra speed boost in terms of how their controller receives inputs, I can basically get what I would normally have to get out of a wired controller with this DualSense Edge when it's not on the wire, right? And there's a lot of functionality too, because it shows me when certain things are going on. There's a lot more color response and stuff like that for the gameplay. Your haptics feel better in my opinion. Button presses are smoother and more polished, and also I can attach bumpers too, which help me to kind of less focus on certain things sometimes, and it can allow me to just kind of focus on my buttons instead of having to focus on like pushing down for sprint and things like that. Again, the bumpers help. It's a little difficult to explain. You really do have to feel it, but it is just different. But so I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all enjoy the gameplay, and I'll speak a bit in certain moments to explain certain things. So actually, before I kind of dip out on this, let me go ahead and explain this part here. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually pinching or catching the enemies at a cluster point. And that's a very important thing that you have to learn how to do when you're talking about dealing with ghosts, right? I wasn't able to catch that last enemy. It is what it is. So instead, I kind of came back here and stopped these enemies a bit more. So we're just going to go ahead, run up, use Spirit Kunai, get as many of them out of the way as you can. And then after that, we don't want to wait too long, because see, once we start seeing those archers start zooming toward the spot, you have to make sure that you make your way back to prevent yourself from losing that spot. I see people lose their bases all the time doing that. So now we're going to go in. We've lowered their health a bit, so as you can see, it's immediately able to get some Spirit Kunai kills off the top. And if we're lucky, we weren't lucky on that one, but I was trying to reach that brute with that Spirit Kunai throw. Didn't make it, is what it is. Sometimes it works out well, sometimes it doesn't. And so with that, for example, with a point blank range, like a point blank Spirit Kunai toss, I was hoping to bring down that Oni Archer too. Didn't happen, is what it is. So we're gonna go ahead, set up in here. Obviously I jumped past that brute, and the reason is because with that Staggering Breath I can get in the center and knock the majority of the enemies out. Then that gives me the ability to sit here and set up a perimeter using my smoke bomb, and then start to actually knock out the remainder of the enemies. The Staggering Breath Ronin, and really Ronin in general, but the Staggering Breath Ronin for sure is one of the most OP builds that you can possibly come up with if you can set it up right. Because of the fact that when you really can make use of all of the different forms of bombs at once, it really is overpowered, not to mention the ghost weapon damage boost is just insane. I would say that really, if you know how to use status effects to your advantage, the Ronin, when set up properly, is almost toe-to-toe with the Hunter for demolition power. But you have to set him up properly, and you have to know how to play him right. But it's a lot. I would say that you can play the Ronin a lot more aggressively than you can play the Hunter, unless you're just really, 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 really good. Let me stress that really good thing when it comes to playing a hunter aggressive. Because otherwise the hunter does not work in aggressive situations. It just, yeah, it is what it is. And I'm just calling it like I see it on that one. Because the hunter tends to put you in tunnel vision, right? So that's something you have to worry about. Now here, I was lucky. I call it, like I said, that was total luck that that enemy came over and shot me out. And that's why you really want to be very, very careful with the eyes of EO. So we're going to go ahead, stop that brute, and then take this circle back. So I realized at this point that it's going to be very difficult for me to get to both circles. So from here, I just went ahead and tried to go to stable. I realized I probably wouldn't make it in time. So that's when I started saying, okay, I'm just going to cull whatever enemies I can as they start to come back toward barracks. It's like, why bother? Because one of the things that I realized a lot from playing both solos in a sense and from also trying to play in team situations, if you see a base and that base is about 75% full or near 75%, and you are not near that base, there is almost no way you're making it unless you have an assassin bolt to get over there. I'm just keeping it real with you. You're not going to make it in time. So you might as well just go ahead and set up somewhere else and then just start making a stand. And that's an especially big thing in team play. So as you can see there, we use the ult again to knock them back. Then I use that bomb so I can go ahead and get my spirit kunai back. And then after that, I just started taking them down. Now, sometimes, as you can see, or as you just saw, Spirit Kunai does miss. That happens. Spirit Kunai targeting is a fun thing that's discussed very often in the Reddit because it can be fickle as can be. So you just have to know what you're getting into, and you have to have a backup plan in case your Spirit Kunai misses. So always be ready to dodge after you throw the Spirit Kunai just in case it does not hit the enemy that you intended. It may float past that enemy, hit 5 enemies behind them, but you may miss the enemy that you were intending to stop unless you're tossing it literally point blank range.
Well,
can you drop that? So right here, as you can see, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the enemies to come in. I'm not going to try and track them across the battlefield. I'm not going to try and head out and hit and get them out in the areas before they get here. And that is up to you, right? If you want to, that's up to your discretion. You could have gone and done that as a player. The reason I chose not to, though, is because this map, I'm actually not used to playing on this map. Yeah, I don't, and what I mean by that is I play all the maps for normal plats and stuff, but to be honest, HH and otherwise, I've only really ever focused on doing the Blood in the Snow map with HH. I only recently did something related to an HH that wasn't on Blood in the Snow. And then for this map specifically, I don't really have much experience in the sense dealing with Nightmare on this one, unless it's in a team format. So with me knowing my weaknesses, and where that puts me, I decided to go ahead and say, okay, since I don't remember the location of every single eye, I'm not going to take the risk and somehow get myself killed trying to intercept the enemies outside of this area. I know the pattern in this location, so I'm not going to take a risk and go outside of that location. One thing that I do sometimes is, you can see, I'll accidentally close the distance too much when using black powder bombs. And a lot of that is due to the fact that I use a mix of black powder and flash depending on my different characters. So I have a habit of accidentally forgetting the fact that I'm like, oh man, I'm using a black powder bomb when I'm thinking in my head more like flash, even though I know that I picked black powder. That's the reason I picked it, was for its effect, but I'm thinking almost like the range and the damage, which is no damage technically, from a flash bomb. So yeah, that's just a part where my brain kind of messes up a bit on that. Something else that I always do, no matter how small it is, unless it is a situation where I know I should be conserving health going into a Tengu wave, I will get my health back up to full, or at least semi-full, before we're about to hit the next wave of enemies. I know it's a lot of people in team play will leave their health low. Please do not do that. Coming from experience and everything else, unless you know that you are the master of the untouchability, it's not a good idea to do that because it all it takes is that one Oni swing, that one Oni slam that you were not expecting, and now you are either at critical health or just plain old dead because you chose not to boost your health when you could have. Now again, I'm not trying to do bonus objectives here, so this is literally just make it through the solo. So as you can see, most enemies can be jumped. When they go to attack you, you have to wait until the glint is pretty much right at its closing point, and that's even harder, of course, on aggressive enemies. But if you jump, you will be able to dodge most enemy attacks. You can do that with spear dudes, you can do it with Oni lords, whole nine, and that does work. That was me not paying attention, so that's why I got caught by that one. And then at that point I was like, I'm just gonna get out of there because that's too much risk. So see, there I demonstrated that jump again. You can use the jump and smoke bomb, and then that will provide invisibility more or less. Also, when you hit enemies with the Spirit Kunai, if you can get them point blank, there's two different ways to do a point blank Spirit Kunai kill. You can hit them in such a way where it fans, where the Spirit Kunai hits, and that's kind of like standing slightly off to the side, then turning into them and throwing the Spirit Kunai, and so they get hit by the wave of Spirit Kunai. That's one way to kill an enemy. And then the other way to kill them is to basically air volley. So you juggle them. What happens is they get hit by the Spirit Kunai, bounced in the air, and then after that they continue to get hit as they kind of, as the Kunai continue to fly, right? And so as a result, that can take down an enemy. I would say that works really well on your lower level enemies like brutes and archers. And also the guys who throw the bombs. I forget what they are really, but the bombardier Mongols. But for something heavier, like let's say that big Oni dude right there, the Oni lords, you will need to actually do the fanning method. So you'll need to stand slightly to the side and then turn in as you toss the Spirit Kunai. And you should be able, you'll literally kind of see it and you'll hear it too, where it'll be like a that'll be the multiple Spirit Kunai hitting that enemy and then actually taking its health all the way down. And if you do it the right way, you can either one-shot kill one of them with Spirit Kunai, or you can basically break their stagger to the point where they'll only have like maybe 5 hit points of health or something like that, and just one sword swipe will do the job for you. So here again, I'm just waiting for the enemies to come in. That same technique, you let them get in the circle, and then after that, you can really sit there, clean house with the Spirit Kunai. Get your cooldowns back, always have healing ready, and then also be ready to drop an ult. Oh, and as I'm sure it's been noticed too, so I use water katana. I don't really ever use moon. I've used stone, I've used wind a few times. I hate wind personally though, so just keep that in mind. And that's because I'm sure anyone who's played this game enough knows that wind is nigh useless for most encounters. And of course I also use a master's katana pretty well also. So as we can see here, those are those Tengu, so I know that they have to go down as soon as possible. That's why I'm sitting here and making it a point to get rid of them. Here I'm just running around in a circle, making sure that not too many of their attacks get to me. And then of course I put down my healing to be able to keep me alive as I use my ult just in case. Got the smoke bomb off, and then of course now I'm sitting there and taking them down one by one with bombs. As it is possible to see, the staggering breath is just such a beautiful technique. Using that ult allows you to literally clear a circle or near clear a circle every single time. And so it just makes it so much easier to keep an area when you're being overrun by enemies. So every character has a similar ability, but you just have to know how to use it. And the thing is that only one of them, which is the Ronins, has the power that it does to knock the enemies out. The other three, kind of, you have to figure out how to use them the right way. So, Samurai, that one is the Frenzy, right? You can use the Hachiman's Frenzy, which will give you the 5-strike ult. You can use it in the same way, but you have to combine Hachiman's Frenzy with Raging Flame. Then you have to be fast with your strikes, and if you do it properly, you can normally clear an entire circle with one well-planned execution. Now, if we're talking about the Assassin, then the Assassin has Toxic Vanish. One big Toxic Vanish with Chain Vanish. You run the first one. If you're using Blowgun, you shoot one enemy or two enemies with blow darts. Get them down to a certain amount of health, run your assassination, does Chain Vanish, you run it again, and then you start filling the area with Spirit Kunai. You can probably clear the whole thing pretty easily. And if need be, you can pick off any remaining stragglers with an ult. Hunter, you basically use Explosive Arrow with high stats marked up, and then if you do that properly, then you should just be able to run in, do a few Spirit Kunai runs, maybe 2. Maybe 3 maximum, but probably you'll be able to get, you probably just need just 2, because honestly a fully charged explosive arrow will basically melt a wave, especially if it's a headshot and it bounces properly with the SSB. So that's going to be your skipping stone bow, and so if it works properly, then yeah, it's pretty much a wave wipe. But yep. So those are the 4 different characters' methods for how to clear waves really quickly within a circle. So here, of course, we're now about halfway through. And on Shadows of War, what you have to remember with this battlefield, you do run out of ammo. So that's why with a battlefield like this one, where you cannot buy more ammo, my suggestion to anyone playing, especially if you're doing a solo, I mean, even if you're running with someone else, right, you still don't want to run out of ammo. But especially if you're doing a solo, you're going to want to only use 1 ammo bin at maximum per 3 waves. You do not want to have to top off ammo twice in a single wave series, I guess you could say. Or a single gauntlet, maybe, if one wants to think of it like that. So here we go again with the Tengu. So here what I'm going to do, I'm standing by, I am letting all of the Tengu get in the same spot. Then I am putting down my smoke, I am going after the first Tengu, knock the health down enough, immediate Spirit Kunai kill, knock the second set, more Spirit Kunai kills. Then I'm able to just kind of bounce off of those Spirit Kunai, using like a machine gun in a sense over and over again. Come around, and then after that I take care of the stragglers. Bombs make it a lot easier with these big dudes with the shield, because the thing is that when you're trying to fight them, 1 is not that bad, but 2 or more can be very, very annoying. And in addition to that, when you're talking about hand-to-hand combat on them, it's very difficult to get anywhere. Now, I know that I'm going to lose this base. That's not why I'm heading in this direction. I'm just heading here so that I can actually do a bit of damage to them ahead of time, and then basically just roll my way out of this area. And I did hear that slam coming. So that's an important thing too, is that you just have to pay attention to the enemies and know how they're going to fight. And so you can really sit there and take advantage of certain scenarios and keep yourself out of trouble. So here we set up with the smoke bomb. You could have, again, I'm sure you can do this. Heck, I'm not even one of those moments where it's like, I'm sure, I know that you can do this with cow traps. but it's just not going to be easy. So for anyone who is not used to doing this kind of thing, I would definitely suggest to use smoke instead of cow traps. Because if your awareness has to be high, just using this with a smoke bomb to save you sometimes, your awareness has to be insane to be able to get away with doing it with cow traps. So there's that jump. As I said, that hop always works really, really well. Knowing how to skirt the edge of the circle and use the hop to your advantage gets you out of a lot of troublesome situations. Here I didn't need to use as many bombs as I did, but it's just one of those where I'm taking the extra precaution to not have to deal with enemies somehow coming back on me and hitting me at random times. So I always make sure that the circles are of course cleared and reset. May not be able to always keep a circle, but it is what it is. I'm not going to worry about that, but at least what I want to do is always reset the circle when I have the opportunity. See, here I go with refilling my weapons because I know that I'm going to need them. And you're always trying to conserve the bombs. You don't want to spam bombs. It's one of those things where everything should be very controlled, very measured. So now we're going to go back to that circle. Make sure that we don't lose it. And so I kind of just wound up realizing, I'm like, okay, I need to take their health down a lot more. So that was why I decided to go ahead and just pop the ignite at that point. And if there is a question of how I'm doing all of that constant fire and poison damage, that's because I use Poison Blade and Burning Blade simultaneously on my water katana. So we know that all the enemies are coming here now. The reason why, of course, I'm up on this thing, one, it's easy to hide. Two, eyes can't get me. In Shadows of War, basically your best bet is to stay, if you can, up on the top of the castle walls. And from here, this is... Now, see, that was a miss. Almost died on that. And that was because when I jumped, the tracking still kind of kept up with me on that one. Was what it was. So of course I'm using that barrel to help me in terms of an offensive move against the enemies. You can choose to not use the barrels at all. This is possible without the barrels. The barrels just make it easier, right? Especially when you know that you're running out of certain weapons. So like for example, I knew that I didn't have black powder bombs, so let me make up for the difference in that by using a barrel to hit the initial set of enemies. Boss waves, for whatever it's worth, tend to be easier than the actual normal waves. It's just that they have modifiers. As long as you can make sure that the modifiers don't kill you, you should be okay for the most part. So at that point, I was confident that my move would just kill him, the burning, like the flames and everything that he was already inflicted with. Also, as you just saw, I did use that juggling technique that I mentioned with Spirit Kunai, where it knocks them into the air and then they get hit with the subsequent ones. So here I'm just thinning the herd, just moving around in a circle, and then I activated that ult because I knew I didn't have time to dodge. Oh, something else that I should probably mention. I'm sure someone's probably figured it out though who's watching this. I don't know the wave order. I don't keep track of that kind of stuff. I can care less about wave orders. I don't notice them. For me, knowing where the wave order is, now granted, I should probably do that if I wanted to like speed run a nightmare or if I wanted to make sure that I was focused on all the bonus objectives. But because this is just a, oh, I just want to test my skill and see if I can do a solo nightmare under whatever conditions thing, I don't look up the order or have an idea of where the enemies are going to be. I'm just reacting as the thing goes off. That's it. I promise I am not paying attention to a wave order at all with any of this. I am just doing whatever. If it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And if I have an opportunity, then I take it. That's literally the kind of gameplay that I'm doing here. To be honest, there, as much as I saw and heard that archer drawing the bow, I should have honestly dodged or rolled. But I think I was hoping that he was just going to kind of maybe run out. Or maybe just get stunned in a sense just by the idea of everything that was going on and not finish shooting. I don't know what I was hoping for there, to be honest. There I was hoping to be able to jump far enough to not get tracked. But the truth is that when you're dealing with this, and especially if this had been aggressive enemies, there's no way that would have worked anyway. At that point, you're kind of stuck unless you just stay on the ground and you probably do a very, very nicely timed dodge. But a jump in that situation will almost certainly not work. So here, as you can see, I'm spinning the camera as fast as possible to be able to keep all of the enemies in my vision field. It'd be the same thing if you were dealing with a martial arts situation in the street, right? You'd want to make sure that all of your enemies are visibly in front of you, because the enemy that you can't see is the one that obviously can deal the worst damage to you. So as I said before, my strategy, since I'm not trying to get bonus objectives or anything, and I'm not trying to get it done as fast as possible, is to just wait and see what shows up and then take advantage of that. And this is another example of where, again, Spirit Kunai proves itself to be totally broken. Unless you are dealing with a group where it's pretty much all Oni Lords, and so everybody's health is just super high, otherwise Spirit Kunai is amazing. Because as long as you're dealing with even semi-normal Mongol enemies, All you do is just set it up, and as you can see, you can clear a whole circle very easily, just running in like, yes, I'm here. And it's easy. You're literally just pulling a "here's Johnny" on the enemies. Now with that one, I realized, okay, I had wanted to get in closer, and I probably could have jumped through that circle, truth be told. But I just didn't want to take the risk. Because again, I get stuck, nobody's getting me up. Enemies are definitely going to let me die, and then that ends my solo run. So. So now, since this is that 12th wave, I'm moving that barrel. So that way, the barrel can give me a little bit of a boost here. Now, this is wildfire modifier. A lot of people die in the wildfire modifier when just playing even with the normal game, right? Well, not normal game, but I guess like a normal platinum with teammates and all of that. So what you have to remember is all of the enemies will start to light on fire where they die, and the fire will expand from that point. So what you really want to try and do is make sure that you're pretty much doing all of this jumping stuff while fighting. You do not want to land on the ground and be standing after the enemy has died, wherever they've fallen, because of course from that point outward it's going to expand the fire. Now, I definitely could have probably picked a better combo than that to go for, because that almost got me killed. But I was hoping, and it did work out to my advantage, albeit it was risky, but it worked out, was that, okay, my ult can work to get those enemies away from me, and then I can put down extra healing. So as we can see here, I'm just making sure to not stand in the wildfire for too long. It's pretty much just a move around thing while paying attention, of course, to any arrows and stuff that may be floating on the battlefield. Since I don't use arrow indicators whatsoever, I really have to pay attention to the sounds. And so that's an example of not button pressing, or should I say button mashing. Because if you're not button mashing, you can dodge roll out of a situation where you started a combo on an Oni brute and it starts that swing. Same thing is necessary and of course possible when fighting Oni lords. The only attack that I would say you cannot really have any preemptive, like preempting for, where you know it's coming, you can't predict it, is the Oni Lord vertical swing. That vertical, not the slam, not the smash, but the vertical spin swing. You really cannot predict that thing. You can just be mid-attack and you just get hit. It is what it is. So the rule with that, if you don't want to get bashed in by that one, is just don't do more than 3 consecutive strikes, in my opinion, on an Oni Lord, if it is not in a state of stun, right? If it is not stunned or in some way prevented from attacking you back, where its stagger is broken or something, if it's not in that position, then you are being very overzealous and very, very brave to try and actually make something happen in that situation. Because 9 times out of 10, that Oni Lord's going to swing that staff, and on aggressive enemies, especially on an HH run, you've probably killed yourself and potentially your entire team. Also notice there, I'm showing a little trick. You can sit there and as you're fighting the enemy, after 2 to 3 swipes, drop a bomb. And then that way, that bomb actually stops the enemies from doing much more. Now, see, as an example of Spirit Kunai not doing what it was supposed to do, because even though I was blind, I did toss the Spirit Kunai in the direction of that Oni shields me. So it was supposed to actually stop that one. Just didn't. So there, when I used my ult, I figured that I had enough distance to get that attack off. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes you have to really pay attention to the distance and widen it even a little bit more. So that is a perfect example of animation problems, in my opinion, that I have with Ghost of Tsushima. So sometimes, again, you get stuck in kill animations, and of course a big part of that, right, or the way that most people would put it up, a big part of it in a sense is, oh, okay, you just need to make sure that you only use triangle attacks. But the problem is sometimes that's not what you really want to do. And the best combos, to be honest, are of course not all triangle attacks, right? It's a variation combo where you might use, let's say with the water katana, in my experience, you hold the katana down, you do flurry strikes, and then after the flurry strikes, halfway through, you can switch into a square attack or something like that. And then you can just proceed to kind of wail on the enemy by alternating between hold triangle, 1, 2, 3, 4 tap with the flurry strikes, alternate into a square tap, horizontal strike. Then after that, you might do vertical triangle, square again, and so on to try and get a faster combo in on enemies. So see, that's an interesting situation where, as you saw, the Spirit Kunai kind of overlace themselves. And that's an interesting situation that normally does not happen, where they somehow overlap in such a way where two that were going in totally different directions kind of came together to pincer the enemy and knock it out. So there I used the ult to prevent that Oni Lord from stabbing me. I knew that once he disappeared the first time, when he appeared the second time, he would have started to hit me. As we can see here, I'm making it a point to very, very quickly vary my attacks off of each enemy, because I know that they're going to attack me at random points. If this had been aggressive enemies, this would have been even more dangerous. To be honest, with aggressive enemies, you would have wanted to be in smoke or something, because you probably wouldn't have had that much time before all of them would have tried to slam you at once. So all of that's just me listening to the sounds and very quickly reacting based on what I hear the enemy's about to try and do. With that one, I couldn't break out of the combo in time. I had gotten overzealous. I was trying to bring it down with the flurry strikes, and as you could see, I wasn't able to dodge out of it fast enough. And so there's an enemy that's stuck. That position that you're about to see the enemy in, that archer right there, that is a position that enemies get stuck in regularly on this map. So that is one of those moments where if you're fighting and you notice an enemy has not shown up, 9 times out of 10 it is stuck in that spot. Either there, or it will be stuck out behind like the barracks entrance. So here we go. This is that last wave. I was trying to figure out if I had time to go grab something, and then I realized, oh man, I have no time, so I just have to do what I have to do. So this is me starting to scramble. So I'm like, okay, let me think about what I can do really quickly. And my first idea was, all right, I drop that barrel in there, and then I just let the enemies come in, and we'll just take it from there. Biggest threat, honestly, in my opinion, and on a final wave, are the bears. So that's what I wanted to take down first, if at all possible. Now there you can see that my spirit kunai actually did not do the intended thing. Almost none of them hit. So I had to make it work with the ult following that. That was, again, not the expectation at all. So here we have those remaining Oni Lords. As you can see, I'm just taking my time to kind of deal with them. I know I can't rush things too much. Saving the Spirit Kunai for the right moment. Activating Ignite to try and do as much damage as I can and just bring a few more down. And then I knew at that point I'd be, I wouldn't say home free, but I'd be able to do quite a bit with that ult. And there we go. And so I was able to end it pretty cleanly. But anyway, thanks again for everyone who watched this. If you have any questions about how I did certain things in the game, then please, by all means, leave them in the comments. It's been great putting this content together, and I will catch y'all in the next one. This has been Hwa Rang Gaming. Peace.